Christian Wilkins might miss the entire 2025 season. Yes, you heard that right. And this isn't just another wild rumor. An intense report has surfaced that could change everything for the Las Vegas Raiders defense. According to someone claiming to have inside access to the team, star defensive lineman Christian Wilkins is not fully recovered from his previous surgery. And worse, he's still feeling serious foot pain. The Raiders' own medical team is reportedly urging him to go under the knife again, which could knock him out for the entire upcoming season. That's a massive blow for a defense that was counting on Wilkins to anchor the line. Before we dive deeper into this shocking update, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and don't forget to press the bell icon so you never miss a major Raiders update. Now, back to the breaking news. Here's why this report is causing such a stir. It came from Mitchell Wentz, a well-known Raiders content creator. While not everyone agrees with his takes, Wentz didn't frame this as gossip. He claims his direct source inside the Raiders organization confirmed the medical recommendation. Wilkins needs another surgery. 7 months after his last procedure, Wilkins should be game ready. But the pain hasn't gone away. That's alarming, not just for the player, but for a team that's building something new under Pete Carroll. If this turns out to be true, it could be one of the most devastating offseason developments for the Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders are facing a quiet storm, and it's swirling around Christian Wilkins. Behind the scenes, multiple voices close to the team are confirming the same unsettling reality. Wilkins is still in pain and needs a second foot surgery. The team's doctors have already advised it, but here's the twist. Wilkins doesn't want it. Why? Because he knows what it means, missing a major chunk, or maybe all, of the 2025 season. Now, let's clear something up. In the NFL, news doesn't always come from headlines. Sometimes it leaks through locker room whispers or texts between players and content creators who've built real relationships with the team. That's likely what happened here. It doesn't matter if the source is a starter, a practice squad player, or someone in between. What matters is that the message is consistent. Wilkins is still battling foot pain months after his first surgery. And that's serious. The injury? It's likely a Jones fracture, which is notorious for lingering pain. About 20% of cases like this need a second operation. Once healed, it rarely returns, but getting there often means a long and frustrating road. Wilkins now faces a brutal decision: push through the pain for the 2025 season and risk worsening the injury, or undergo surgery again and likely sit out the year. Neither option is ideal, but this choice could shape not just his future, but the entire Raiders' defensive plans this season. Imagine this: the Raiders are sitting at 2-8, playoff hopes slipping away, and Christian Wilkins still pushing through foot pain. That's when the decision might hit hardest: get the surgery and shut it down, or keep battling through a lost season. According to trusted voices around the team, Wilkins is at a crossroads. The Raiders' medical staff is urging surgery. The foot hasn't healed as expected, and delaying could cause permanent damage. But Wilkins? He's not ready to quit on the 2025 season just yet. He's hoping the pain fades, hoping he can hold the line. But hope doesn't fix fractures. This situation is more than just a medical update. It's a potential nightmare for the Raiders' front office. They invested nearly $30 million per year in one of the most promising defensive tackles in the NFL. A deal built on dominance. And to be fair, Wilkins was living up to it. Even in limited games, he flashed everything that made him elite: burst off the snap, interior pressure, disruption in the backfield. But now, that impact might be lost to recovery rooms and rehab timelines. Wilkins wasn't an overnight star. He worked his way up year by year, slowly turning into one of the league's most feared linemen. That kind of growth is rare, and when the Raiders signed him, they weren't just buying talent, they were buying a cornerstone. Now they wait, like the rest of us, to see if that cornerstone holds or cracks under the weight of a second surgery. When Christian Wilkins was on the field, you could feel the difference. He didn't have to make every tackle to change the game, because he was wrecking plays before they even developed. Whether it was an inside run that got rerouted because he split the guard, or pressure that flushed the quarterback into Tyree Wilson's arms, Wilkins brought chaos to every snap. That's the kind of presence you pay top dollar for. And the Raiders did just that. Some now question the size of his contract. But let's be real. Before this injury cloud, the deal made perfect sense. The The Raiders were securing one of the best interior defenders in football, and unlike other big names signed elsewhere for even more money, like Milton Williams, Wilkins actually earned his reputation. You can't always predict injuries. What you can do is bet on proven talent, and Wilkins, in just a handful of games, showed exactly why the Raiders gave him that deal. Still, the reality now is painful, literally. If Wilkins misses the entire 2025 season, that contract starts to look like a setback. But even then, if he returns in 2026 at full strength, the Raiders could still get 2 dominant seasons from him. Yes, it would sting to lose back-to-back years of production from a $30 million man. But, in the long game, a healthy Christian Wilkins is worth the wait. If he comes back as the game wrecker, the Raiders know he can be. Here's the harsh truth. Even if Christian Wilkins chooses to fight through the pain, there's no guarantee he'll be the same dominant force. That's the kind of gamble the Raiders may be forced to take. Can he still be explosive off the line? Can he hold his ground when the double teams come? Will he be able to slide into those critical roles, the 1-tech, nose, or 3-tech spots, and still shut down the run like before? Because let's not forget, Wilkins is a run stopper first, a game changer in the trenches. If his foot limits his power, that could compromise everything he brings to the table. The whole situation is frustrating for the Raiders, and while it's not totally unexpected, whispers about this injury started months ago. It's the timing that hurts most. If Wilkins had opted for surgery back in March, he might have been ready by playoff time. But instead, he spent the offseason training, hoping the pain would fade. It didn't. And now, that decision is hanging over everything. Had he gone under the knife earlier, he might have missed reps, but he'd be closer to full strength. Now, either the Raiders enter the season with a $110 million lineman at less than 100%, or they lose him entirely if he chooses surgery mid-season. It's a brutal spot to be in. And while some might question the credibility of the report, the noise is growing louder. This isn't just a headline or a rumor. This is something coming directly from voices who know the pulse of the locker room. And right now, that pulse is tense. In today's NFL, breaking news doesn't always come from the big names on TV. Sometimes the truth leaks from the locker room, one player at a time. Over the years, we've seen early injury reports come not from ESPN, but from people quietly connected to the team. Raiders fans still remember how news of Malcolm Kuntz's ACL tear hit social media before it reached the national outlets. It was doubted at first, until it turned out to be 100% accurate. That's exactly why this Christian Wilkins situation can't be brushed off. The source reporting this isn't throwing out wild speculation. They're stating clearly, Wilkins needs surgery. And based on the way the Raiders staff is reacting, it's clear this isn't just smoke. There's real fire underneath. This isn't your average off-season rumor. This is a health crisis for a player who's supposed to be the heart of the Raiders' defensive line. It's a situation that could shift the course of the 2025 season, depending on what decision Wilkins makes in the coming weeks. If it were up to me, I'd say get the surgery now. Give yourself the best shot at returning late in the season, maybe even in time for a playoff push, because trotting out a 60% Wilkins for 17 games, that's not just risky. It could backfire on both the player and the team. In a season where every piece matters, the Raiders can't afford to gamble on damaged goods. The choice Wilkins makes now could define the success or the collapse of the entire year. If Christian Wilkins tries to tough it out and play through pain, there's a real risk. More damage, more time lost, and possibly a shorter career. That's the hard truth. As much as Raiders fans want to see him on the field, the bigger picture matters. Whether Wilkins stays with the team or ends up elsewhere, his long-term health comes first. A fully healthy Wilkins down the line is worth far more than a broken one now. But let's shift gears, because while the Wilkins saga unfolds, the Raiders are also quietly making strategic changes on offense. Training camp is just around the corner. Rookies report on July 16th, with the veterans joining 5 days later. And ahead of that, a familiar face is back around the team. Lincoln Kennedy. A former Pro Bowl offensive lineman and one of the most respected players in Raiders history, Kennedy has rejoined the squad and is closely observing practices. He wasn't visible during OTAs, but he's been present for minicamp, and he's already noticing something important. According to Kennedy, the Raiders are preparing for a modified run scheme under Chip Kelly. While it's not a radical overhaul, The NFL only allows for so much schematic variety. Kennedy has hinted that some of the nuances in blocking and gap structure have shifted. That's significant coming from a guy who understands the trenches like few others do. When someone like Kennedy, who played the game at a high level, points out changes in technique and formation, you listen. The Raiders might not be reinventing the wheel, but they're definitely tuning the engine. And as training camp draws near, this evolving run game could be one of the biggest developments to watch. When it comes to run schemes, most fans can't tell the difference between outside zone, power, or wide zone, and that's fine. But when Lincoln Kennedy talks, people inside the Raiders organization listen. As one of the best offensive linemen in franchise history, Kennedy's insights from recent practices are offering a rare peek into how the Raiders are evolving up front. He's noticed something unique. The Raiders are blending zone blocking on the edges with man blocking inside. That's not common, and it's not easy to execute, but it could make the offense unpredictable, and that's exactly the point. Kennedy put it best. I'm totally fine with having that versatility. Teams can't pin down one type of scheme to try to defend against it. Here's what that actually means on the field. For perimeter runs, the plays designed to go outside the tackles, the Raiders are leaning heavily into zone blocking. That's where the linemen don't attack specific defenders, but instead flow to an area, passing defenders off as they move laterally. It's ideal for stretching the defense and creating open lanes for a speed back to cut and go. But inside, it's a different story. On interior runs, the Raiders are going man-to-man, assigning blockers directly to defenders. That lets powerful interior linemen like Dylan Parham or rookie additions go head-to-head, opening gaps through sheer strength. It's a layered approach, part Chip Kelly's wide zone philosophy, part old-school power football. And if executed right, it could be exactly what the Raiders need to control the line of scrimmage and keep defenses guessing. This blend of schemes, especially when taught by someone like Kennedy and implemented by Chip Kelly, might become a defining feature of the 2025 Raiders offense. When it comes to run schemes in today's NFL, wide zone stands out, especially when you've got speed in the backfield. Just look at how the 49ers use Christian McCaffrey, or how the Dolphins unlocked Devon Achane. These backs thrived because the wide zone gave them space, vision, and angles. Now, the Raiders are taking a similar approach. With Ashton Davis, Ashenti, in the mix, the Raiders are gearing up to install wide zone runs under Chip Kelly. It's not just about stretching the defense. It's about creating one-on-one matchups and letting explosive runners do what they do best, make defenders miss in space. But that's only half the story. What makes this system interesting is that while the outside run game is zone-based, the interior attack will use man blocking, also known as power or duo schemes. That means instead of flowing to space, linemen are locking onto defenders, double-teaming at the line, and climbing to the second level to create clean running lanes. This hybrid approach, wide zone on the edges, man blocking inside, is rare and difficult to defend. Forget inside zone and mid-zone. The Raiders are shifting toward a power-based interior run game, which puts emphasis on strength and precision blocking. It's a method that has been refined by elite coaches like Sean McVay and used to dominate in short yardage and red zone situations. And that's what makes this direction so promising. If Chip Kelly and the offensive line can execute both styles, the Raiders' run game will be unpredictable, balanced, and explosive, something that's been missing for far too long. In the Raiders' new-look offense, the inside run is about to get nasty. And it all starts with the duo concept. Imagine 4 offensive linemen, both guards, the center, and 1 tackle, lining up to double-team the 2 defensive tackles, then climbing to take on the linebackers. That creates 5 gaps between 4 linemen, and with only 4 bodies to block, it's up to the running back to find the lane and explode through it. That's what makes duos so dangerous. It looks chaotic to defenders, but for the offense, it's pure control. The line blocks straight ahead with power, and the back reads the chaos like it's art. Lincoln Kennedy confirmed what we suspected from Raiders practice. The team is all in on man blocking inside, especially duo. That's not just smart, it's strategic. Pair that with the wide zone attack on the perimeter, and you've got a 2-headed monster of a run game. Outside, you've got zone flows that stretch defenses. Inside, you've got raw force opening unpredictable lanes. Chip Kelly clearly understands what works in today's NFL, He's leaning into the exact two concepts that top offenses use to dominate: wide zone and duo. And with a player like Ashton Jeanty in the backfield, it's a perfect fit. At Boise State, Jeanty thrived in duo-heavy schemes. Now, with Colton Miller sealing the edge and linemen bullying defenders inside, the lanes will open. And all Jeanty needs is one clear cut, just like McCaffrey in San Francisco or a chain in Miami, and he's gone. This isn't just theory, it's a calculated shift towards something fast, powerful, and unpredictable. If executed right, the Raiders' ground game could become one of the most explosive in the league, and it all starts with these trenches. Everything we're hearing lately, from the Christian Wilkins injury situation to the new offensive strategy, paints one big picture. This is a different Raiders team. The run game is evolving, the blocking schemes are shifting, but perhaps the most important change isn't on the field. It's on the sideline, wearing the headset. Chip Kelly knows how to build an offense from scratch. That's a skill very few coaches actually have. Too many coordinators in the NFL fail not because they're bad play callers, but because they've never had to install a system from the ground up. They walk into a team with a scheme already in place and follow along. But once they're handed the keys and asked to create something, that's when it falls apart. We've seen it before in Las Vegas. The Raiders once handed the defense to Paul Guenther, and it crumbled. He never had to install his own system before, and it showed. The same thing happened with Luke Getsy. He looked lost in Chicago, not because he didn't care or wasn't trying, but because he had never built an offense from the ground up. That's why Chip Kelly is such a vital piece. He's done this 5 or 6 times, in college and the NFL. At Oregon, he built a powerhouse. In Philadelphia, his offense made waves in its first season. At UCLA, and even during his short stint in San Francisco, his schemes consistently showed innovation, sometimes even ahead of their time. Now, with the Raiders, he's doing it again. And this time, he has the tools and the freedom to do it his way. Despite the unfortunate news around Wilkins, and the questions that always surround a new system, there's something different about this moment. You can feel it. You can see it in how the players are practicing, how the schemes are changing, and how the pieces are being assembled. This Raiders team is no longer surviving off hype or past glory. They're building from the foundation, and Chip Kelly is pouring the concrete. If the defense holds steady and the offense clicks by mid-season, don't be surprised if by December, fans aren't just talking about playoff hopes. They're whispering something bigger: Super Bowl.